Peter Aldous to move the motion.
Thank you, Mr Efford. I beg to move that this House should consider access to NHS Dentistry. Mr Efford, it's a pleasure to serve under your chairmanship. I thank the Backbench Business Committee for granting this debate, and I'm grateful to the Honourable Member for Bradford South for the work that she has done to help secure it. Mr Efford, NHS Dentistry has been the #1 issue in my inbox for the past 9 to 10 months. This is a national crisis, though the problem in my constituency in Lowestoft and Waveney is acute. There, dentists have retired, and this has led to resources and dental capacity being taken away from the area, notwithstanding the increased need and demand following the pandemic. Many of the remaining practices in the local area are experiencing difficulties in recruiting and retaining dentists. The situation has been exacerbated by a lack of funding, with net government spending on the general dental practice being reduced by a third over the past decade. That said, the overall situation locally has improved since I first raised my concerns in an adjournment debate on 25th of May last year. I shall outline these improvements later. They are welcome, but I am concerned that they might be a short-term sticking plaster and they may not provide the long-term solution. As we are emerging from COVID, the situation both locally and nationally has reached crisis point. Locally, this is due to COVID and also the retirement of 2 NHS practices in Lowestoft and the closure of the My Dental practice in Leiston in the constituency of my right honourable friend, the member for Suffolk Coastal. The latter was due to the difficulty of recruiting dentists to work in the NHS in the area, and this is a theme that is repeated across the country. Access to NHS dentistry is a problem that has been brewing for a long time. The situation can be likened to a house built on shallow and poor foundations. The earthquake of COVID has led to that house falling down. There are now parts of the country, particularly in rural and coastal areas, though not confined there, that are dental deserts. In such situations, it is invariably children. I will give way to my honourable friend, from the honourable gentleman.
I thank the honourable member and also thank you for securing this very, very important debate. On that point, my constituents in the city of Birmingham have hugely suffered through the COVID period. People like myself who suffer from diabetes have had huge issues with the dental treatment that they've had, and I hope that we can carry on now to move forward and come back to treating them in the best way possible.
I thank the honourable gentleman for that intervention. Whilst there are particular problems in rural and coastal, more periphery locations where it is difficult to get dentists to move, I acknowledge, and it's quite clear from looking around this chamber today, that it's not confined to such areas. It's in metropolitan areas as well. Sir Robert Francis, who chairs Health Watch England, commented, every part of the country is facing a dental care crisis, with NHS dentistry at risk of vanishing into the void. In brief, I believe there are 5 issues that need to be tackled to address the problem. Firstly, a secure long-term funding stream must be provided. Secondly, we need to step up the recruitment and retention of dental professionals. Thirdly, it is vital that work on the new NHS dental contract, which has been developed for more than a decade, is completed as soon as practically possible. Fourthly, it is important to highlight the role that water fluoridation can play. And finally, there is a need for greater accountability and for dentistry to have a voice in the emerging integrated care boards and partnerships. I'll give way to my honourable friend.
I'm very grateful. Congratulations on securing this very important debate. Can I ask, put another point that needs developing in terms of this issue? Helmsley, in my constituency, the commissioners have now taken 20 months and still not been recommissioned. The commissioning of dental services by the NHS is simply too slow, it is too bureaucratic, and a real deterrent for new dentists to come on and take these contracts.
I thank my honourable friend for that intervention, and he is right. And we're seeing, in East Anglia at the moment, and I'll come on to, there's been a recent procurement process, but it's only been half successful. There are places where they've not been able to get dentists to fill those voids. Figures published in March 2020, before the pandemic, showed that 25% of new patients that 25 new patients to practice in England could not get an appointment. The situation has got worse, and the most recent figures from 2021 show that this figure has increased to 44% of new patients in England, and in my own area to 56%. Dentistry, Mr. Efford, was locked down from March to June of 2020, and the ongoing restrictions on dentists, that is fallow time between appointments, is still limiting the ability to see more patients. The latest figures on workforce published in August 2021 show that 951 fewer dentists performed NHS dental activity in the previous 12 months, with 174 of these losses being in the east of England. These figures confirm that parts of England are becoming dental deserts. This includes not only Suffolk and Norfolk, but the East Yorkshire coastline, Cornwall, Portsmouth and the Isle of Wight. This lack of access to NHS dentistry has a five-fold impact on patients. Firstly, millions are missing appointments. Secondly, there has been a significant increase in DIY tooth extraction. Thirdly, the poor are hit hardest. Fourthly, mouth cancers are going undiagnosed. And finally, children are suffering. These figures, this very serious situation, is confirmed by the Great British Oral Health Report carried out by my dentist. Mr. Efford, I apologise for going on at length, but it's important to emphasise the crisis that we're facing. I will now move on to briefly outline some of the solutions. The first issue that needs to be tackled is to get more dentists and dental practitioners working in the NHS. The Association of Dental Groups have put forward their 6 to fix proposals to solve the workforce crisis. This can be summarised as follows. Firstly, there is a need to increase the number of training places in the UK. That is a long-term measure. In the short term, the second point is the government should continue to recognise EU-trained dentists. Thirdly, there needs to be a recognition of other overseas qualifications. There is an opportunity to make more of our links with Commonwealth countries such as India, which has a surplus of highly skilled English-speaking trained dentists. Fourthly, the process of overseas dentists to complete the performance list validation by experience, that's the PLVE, so they can practice in the NHS, that must be simplified and speeded up. Fifthly, whole teams in dental practices should be allowed to initiate treatments. The largest barrier to better use of the skills mix under current NHS contractual arrangements is that allied dental professionals are unable to open a course of treatment. This means they cannot raise a claim for payments for work delivered. Finally, Mr. Efford, it is important that government should create a new strategy for NHS workforce retention. The current contract through which NHS dentistry is provided was introduced in 2006, and it's been widely recognised for some time as not being fit for purpose. It is a major driver of dentists leaving NHS dentistry. Reforming the NHS contract is needed to deliver better access and preventative care so as to improve the nation's oral health. Flexible commissioning aimed at increasing access to reach vulnerable groups, such as care homes, should be an important part of this reform. The current dental contract is target-based, and it was accepted before the pandemic that it needed to be reformed. We must get on and complete that reform as soon as possible, and I would welcome an update from the Minister as to the progress on doing that and when we might see a new contract. Mr. Efford, it is important that NHS Dentistry receives a sustainable long-term financial settlement and not a short-term fix. Additional funding is vital if long-term and sustainable improvements to NHS Dentistry are to be secured. The pledge of £50 million on the 25th of January for a dentistry treatment blitz is welcome, and of this, £5.73 million is available to the East of England. However, this is a time-limited, one-off injection of funding which is only available until the end of March, and there is a concern that it will barely make a dent in the unprecedented backlogs that NHS Dentistry now faces. The BDA estimate that it would take £880 million per annum to restore the dental budgets to 2010 levels. Mr. Efford, since my adjournment debate last May, and on NHS Dentistry in Waveney, there have been improvements to the local service, which is important to acknowledge. A temporary contract was awarded to a low-staff-based NHS dentist to see additional patients, and this has definitely helped preventing the situation getting any worse. Tomorrow, I am with the community dental services who, along with Leading Lives, a Suffolk-based not-for-profit social enterprise, are launching their toolkit to help improve the oral health of people with learning difficulties. It's also, I think, good news that as from 1st July, a contract has been awarded to Apps Smiles for the delivery of NHS Dentistry in Lowestoft, but it is concerning that it was not possible to do this in nearby Leiston and across the border in Norfolk, in Fakenham and in Thetford. It would be interesting to receive further details as to why this has happened, but one can speculate that there may have been no dentists interested in these opportunities, and those could have been put off by the existing unattractive contract. Mr. Efford, I have concerns about the procurement progress that go back a very long time, and I am concerned that it does not encourage traditional partnerships to put forward proposals, and I would urge the Minister to carry out a whole review of the procurement process. Next point, Mr. Efford, I'm trying to be very quick. A vital strand of NHS dentistry should be the prevention of oral health challenges, prevention rather than treatment. Fluoridation of water supplies can play a vitally important role in this work. It's therefore welcome that the Health and Care Bill does allow for this. There's also a need for greater accountability. I will give way to the honourable gentleman.
I just want to make a real point on this. John Charlton in West Midlands Severn Trent Water has worked on this to get fluoridation in water for the last 30 years, and I think we owe a tribute to him for the great work that he's done.
I'm very grateful the honourable gentleman intervened on me there, because Birmingham is the model of how you do this. And being a Birmingham MP, it is right that he's highlighted that, and I thank him for it. Mr. Efford, there's a need... I'll give way to my honourable friend.
Thank you, honourable member, for giving way. As I will set out in my speech later on, my father was an NHS dentist for some 23 years. He trained a long time ago in Manchester, and the one thing he has said to me is that the advent of sugary foods and sugary drinks has had an enormous detrimental effect on children's teeth over the years. The one thing we can do to solve that problem is fluoridation of our water stream. It has made such a difference, and I thank him for raising this point.
I'm grateful to my honourable friend for re-emphasising that particular point. I give way also to my honourable and learned friend in this instance.
In this instance, Birmingham's a really interesting case because not all Birmingham is fluoridated. So the dentist can say, when the child comes in, which part of Birmingham the child's come from. No cavities, no fillings, fluoridated. Fillings and cavities, non-fluoridated.
I thank my honourable friend for re-emphasising that case.
My honourable friend give way.
Yes.
So I thank my honourable friend for being so generous in giving way so many times. But I just think there's one point that we ought to raise and ought to be mentioned here, is that as far as I'm aware, and I hope my honourable friend can confirm, there have been no detrimental effects from fluoridisation anywhere found as yet. And I think we ought to scotch any rumours to that effect.
Before the gentleman responds,
Now, there are a number of people who've got their names down to speak who are intervening. So just to respect others who want to speak, if you could just refrain.
I'm grateful to we've re-emphasised, I think, with these 4 interventions, the importance of fluoridation. Mr. Efford, there's a need for greater accountability, and the Health and Care Bill can also provide the framework within which this can be secured. It's welcome that the commissioning of dentistry is set to move to integrated care systems, and this can make for a more transparent system, but there is a risk that dentistry and its impact on overall health could be overlooked in the integrated care proposals. It's important that dentists are properly represented on integrated care system boards. Mr. Efford, at the report stage of the Health and Care Bill, I put forward new Clause 18, which called on the Secretary of State to publish an annual report on access to NHS dentistry, for data to be collected on the length of waiting times for primary dental care treatment, and, if necessary, to take action. My honourable friend, the member for Charnwood, declined to accept the new clause. I do not know if a similar clause will be introduced in the other place, but if it is, I would urge the government to give it very serious consideration. Such a reporting mechanism can drive sustainable and meaningful improvement in access to NHS dentistry. Mr. Efford, you will be delighted to learn that I'm coming to a conclusion. Tackling access for NHS dentistry, which has been neglected for 15 years, is an opportunity that we must grasp to demonstrate levelling up of healthcare right across and right around the UK. We must put in place an NHS dentistry system that is fit for the 21st century instead of reversing into the 19th century. Thank you.
Member, before I move the motion, just to say that it looks like 6 minutes.